Really? No one else is gonna do it? Do I really have to be the guy to do it again? Fuck it. Better Call Saul season 6 is mid. I loved Better Call Saul. I thought it was a great show. It had great acting, great cinematography, and for the most part, great writing. Unfortunately, season 6 just dropped the ball on so many separate occasions that I can't just hold my tongue and hold it as high on the scale as I did the other 5 seasons. And it being the final season means I have to treat it even more harshly than any other because it's the final season. It's what all of this has been building up to. It's what the entire 5 original seasons were leading up to, and for the most part, the payoff just wasn't that great. Now, don't get me wrong, there is some great payoff in this season, but unfortunately, it's surrounded by terrible plot contrivances or characters making strange decisions in the best case, and in the worst case, characters being downright stupid. I thought a lot of these moments would be made a bit better or maybe further explained later on in the season, so I kept my criticisms to myself in hopes that the story would make my thoughts irrelevant by the end, but unfortunately, that didn't happen. In this video, I'll explain my points as thoroughly as I can, and if you still disagree with me, that's fine. But you have to at least admit that a lot of what I'm saying is pretty reasonable criticism. We'll start off with my very first issue in season 6, and that's Lalo. Lalo, in my opinion, is one of the best characters in the entire Breaking Bad Better Call Saul universe and is the absolute best Breaking Bad Better Call Saul villain. Yes, even better than Gus. He is cold, calculating, charming, and highly intelligent. He elevated the show to new heights from the very first moment he was introduced in season 4. I also applaud the writers for being able to take a throwaway line from Better Call Saul and create not one, but 2 amazing characters from that throwaway line. That not only adds to the world, giving it a greater sense of continuity, but it also shows just how talented these writers can be. Unfortunately, season 6 Lalo just ain't it. Now I know what you're thinking. He killed Howard. Don't worry, I'll get to that. But first, I want to talk about this whole doppelganger thing. This fucking stupid doppelganger thing. It's fucking stupid, right? We can all agree that this is fucking stupid as shit, right? No? Okay, let's talk about it. So Lalo gets ambushed in the night by Gus's goons, who were let in by Nacho. Lalo, being the badass that he is, and also it being his home, kills all of the goons using his home court advantage. He does get shot in the leg before it's all over though, which does add to the believability a bit. It would be kind of weird if he just got out of there completely unscathed. He then tells the last guard to tell someone on the walkie that the hit was a success, and then storms off angrily. This is great. All good. So now what? Well, Lalo wants Gus to believe that he is alive. He knows that Gus has connections with the cartel and Mexico in general. So if Lalo's body isn't on the scene, Gus will believe he survived and be on the lookout for him, lowering Lalo's chances at getting revenge. So what does Lalo do to solve this issue? Well, he walks an undisclosed distance, which can't be too far because remember, he was shot in the leg, but it also can't be too close because we've seen his compound. There weren't any houses around, and if there were, they definitely would have heard the gunshots from the night before and perhaps done something or called someone, so I'm just going to assume that they were far enough away to not hear gunshots nor see Lalo's estate, which is not visible in any scene outside the house. But they were also close enough for Lalo to walk with a wounded leg. And let's not forget, the raid was at night, not anywhere near sunrise. Lalo started walking immediately after the raid ended, but he didn't arrive at the doppelganger's house until after the sun was well into the sky. Now, I'm no sky person, but I'm pretty sure it takes hours for the sun to rise, so unless Lalo took a nap in the middle of his walk or went back to the estate to sleep with all the dead bodies, or found a car and drove it and got out well before the house to give the audience the impression that he walked for some reason, Lalo has been walking to this place with a wounded leg for hours. Now you may be thinking, okay, so what? What's the big deal? That's certainly not outside of the realm of possibility, and while I'd say I agree with that, I'd also have to begrudgingly admit that we are really stretching that goddamn line. Hopefully nothing else crazy happens going forward, right? Right? So Lalo then discusses with his doppelganger's wife about how he helped pay for her husband's dental work. He wanted this man's dental records to match his perfectly, which apparently never brought up a red flag, but maybe she just didn't know that Lalo had made the records match his. I don't know. Anyways, Lalo tells his doppelganger to shave his beard and he immediately goes to do so. Now, I never thought a goddamn beard would cause a potential plot hole in a series, but here we are. So Lalo's doppelganger goes to immediately shave his beard because Lalo said so. Now, this can only be out of three reasons. One, because he fears Lalo. Two, because he respects Lalo. Or three, because Lalo and he had a previous off-screen discussion that led to an arrangement of sorts where Lalo would use him as a doppelganger if a situation requiring he need a doppelganger ever were to occur. Now let's disregard the insane amount of premonition Lalo would have had to have in order to literally prepare a goddamn doppelganger. I mean, that's just silly, right? Who actually does this? Am I the only one who thinks that's silly? Anyways, yeah, let's disregard that and just say Lalo is just this crazy guy who likes to be prepared for any and all scenarios. Okay, sure. This still doesn't make any fucking sense. Let's go back to the reasoning. If the doppelganger shaved his beard because he feared Lalo, then why is he smiling here? He truly seems to look like he admires Lalo, but maybe it's one of those fearful admirations? I don't know. Either way, how much do you have to fear a wounded man to let him murder your wife and then afterwards follow him to his compound and then die for him? Pretty fucking scared, I'd say. So much so that it wouldn't make any fucking sense. So let's scratch fear out from this reasoning and go to the next reason, which would be respect. Lalo being respected by this guy would make sense. After all, he paid for his dental work and seems to have a fairly good relationship with him. But I'd like to think that killing his wife would kind of put a wrench in their relationship. No? After finding out his wife was brutally murdered downstairs, he still had enough respect to go back to Lalo's compound and die entirely of his own volition? I really, really doubt that, and it's so stupid that I will once again scratch out that reason. Now we're down to reason 3, which would be, again, that Lalo and the doppelganger had a previous conversation off screen that the doppelganger would have to sacrifice his life for Lalo if Lalo needed him to. This would explain his doppelganger's eagerness to shave his beard when Lalo told him to, and it would also explain why he would be willing to walk all the way to Lalo's compound to kill himself. But I mean, were his teeth really that fucked up? How bad do you need your teeth fixed to sign this kind of deal? And also be willing to ignore the fact that he murdered your fucking wife? Also, why would Lalo murder the wife if he knew the doppelganger would come willingly? Not only might it make his doppelganger unwilling to work with him, but what if someone comes to check on her and finds her dead and her husband missing? That would kind of suck for his plan, no? As you can see, all three of these options make zero fucking sense. So how did Lalo do it? The only other explanation is the one you're probably thinking. Lalo did it by force. He murdered the wife, then murdered the doppelganger, and this is by far the absolute dumbest out of all three of these reasons. Now let's say Lalo killed the guy. Then what? He carried his entire bloody body back to the compound with a broken leg or wounded leg? The same compound it took him hours to walk from to get to their house? Yeah, I fucking doubt it. Even if he somehow managed to do this impossible task, there will be blood everywhere, just a trail of it leading from the guy's house all the way to the entrance of the compound and inside the compound itself, unless Lalo scrubbed up all the blood or patched the guy's stab wounds, because he would have killed him with the scissors just like the wife. This is just physically impossible, which is why the show skips over this part and pretends like it wasn't important. It was very important to explain this part of the story, and it opened up the season on a very sour note for me, but okay, fine. It's all done for now. It was stupid. let's just move on. Lalo tricked Gus for the moment. Let's see what he does with this upper hand that he goes to Germany. He goes to Germany? How?
Somebody tell me! Do you hear me? Somebody tell me how he did it! I have to know! I have to know!
How in the fuck did Lalo get to Germany? The cartel may be powerful, but they don't have any jurisdiction in Germany. How was Lalo able to get a fake passport and get a flight to Germany within this short of a time period, all without the cartel, nor the Mexicanos, nor the German airport security finding out? How? How did he fucking do that? Lalo is a damn magician at this point, and once again, he performs all of his magic off screen. The show writers believe we don't need to see that, but you know what we do need to see? Every single second of Jimmy and Kim planning every step of their scam against Howard. Duh. So Lalo gets to Germany, finds Werner's wife, finds the house, finds out the name of the guy who worked on Gus's super lab, and heads back to the USA again with his magic. Now he has everything he needs to put Gus away except actual tangible proof. And here's where Lalo starts to get really, really fucking stupid. He calls Hector for no fucking reason. Why did he call him? Why? There was zero reason to do so. He knew from his previous conversation with Hector in Mexico that he had to get proof. So why the hell is he calling him? Just to brag about the info he found? That makes no sense. And by the way, why didn't Hector tell the cousins what was going on? They are not the cartel. They are Salamanca, and they canonically will choose the Salamanca's interests over the cartel unless persuaded otherwise. So why did Hector not trust them enough to also inform them about Gus, just in case Lalo failed? Also, why do they not believe him when he does tell them way later? Is it because he's a loony, crazy old man? Okay, then why the fuck do they listen to him even later when he would be even more loony and crazy and old in Breaking Bad? This shit don't make sense, bro.
Brother, son of a bitch!
We'll get back to the twins later, but holy shit, this series just treats them like absolute idiots. Which they are, but fuck. Okay, back to Lalo. Lalo plans to get a video of the lab instead of, telling the cartel about what he has found and having them request Gus show the place to them. I mean, I guess Gus could just lie without revealing the movable washing machine if the cartel came. And I guess it makes sense that Lalo will want to make this situation as dire as possible in order to guarantee he's shown the lab. So he goes to the cockroach for help. Very so. Jimmy, and of course Kim. Now this scene, of course, is amazing and definitely is a very powerful, masterful, well-made scene in a bubble. But think about it, it doesn't really hold up. Why did Lalo kill Howard? Your answer is probably to show Jimmy and Kim that he wasn't fucking around, and also so there wouldn't be any witnesses. And well, that's fine, until you consider the fact that Lalo has no idea who Howard is, and also plan to return to the house for Jimmy to torture him later. What if Howard told someone he was visiting Jimmy? What if Howard had someone waiting in the car for him? What if Howard was Jimmy's neighbor who had a wife and kids right next door? If any of these scenarios were the case, it would have made Lalo's plan 10 times harder to execute. Get it? Wouldn't tying both Jimmy and Howard up in this situation be way more logical than just outright killing him? He could then ask Howard who he is and if he came alone and then kill him if so, rather than just assuming he was alone. That's not really a smart thing to do when you already have so much on your plate, Lalo. Holy. Anyways, Lalo goes to the factory and is able to force Gus to open the secret door. This scene is also masterful and awesome and well made, but I mean, come on. Do I really have to say why this scene was stupid? Lalo knows he doesn't have much time. So why does he not call someone like his cousins or someone he can trust to act as a witness for what he's doing rather than using a fucking camera? This is so dumb because if he doesn't make it out alive, that camera is utterly useless. What if Gus has a secret button that can close the washing machine, leaving both he and Lalo in there to die? Lalo has to understand that Gus is literally dead if Lalo escapes, so Gus would do anything to stop that from happening. And also, this lab is Gus's home turf, and Lalo knows how much a home court advantage can affect your odds. Yet, he allows Gus to go on this fucking long ass tangent about shit that doesn't fucking matter, even though he already has everything he needs to prove Gus is betraying the cartel, and he doesn't even have that much time. Even if Lalo shoots Gus, he still has to evade Mike and his guys, all the way back to Mexico. Yet he just stands here listening to Gus blabber on in the perfect spot Gus needed him to be in. I mean, this is just so fucking bad. I'm sorry. This is weak writing, plot contrivances, and Lalo just being stupid in so many different ways just so he can finally fucking die. Then he dies with a smile?
This chicanery?
Okay, let's move on to Nacho. Nacho's plot was so silly I honestly couldn't believe it. First of all, to kill him off so early just felt like a really bad idea from a writing standpoint if you ask me. We only have so many non-sequel characters to work with here. Getting rid of one on the 3rd episode was just not the play if you ask me. Nacho could have been utilized much more as a double agent, but they just got rid of him and they did it so lazily that I was just speechless, honestly. So let's recap. Nacho has betrayed Lalo for Gus out of fear that Gus will kill his father. In exchange for his betrayal, Nacho is supposed to be let off the hook as well as his father. All he has to do is somehow make it back from Mexico without being caught in the process. He can't get caught because the cartel, and more specifically the Salamancas, want to capture Nacho alive in order to get him to give up everything he knows about the raid on Lalo's compound. This means for Gus that Nacho can never be caught under any circumstances, and Nacho should be smart enough to know that, but what does he do? He sits in a random motel that Gus set up for him for days with no word from Mike, the only person he somewhat trusts on Gus's side, until he finally realizes that he's being played and starts to actually do some smart things. The dumbass twin brothers show up, and Gus actually expected Nacho to have a shootout with them and die with one single gun? What kind of a fucking plan was this? There was no way this would ever work. Lucky for Gus, the twins are so fucking stupid that they kill their own man who had Nacho dead to rights and unable to escape. All they had to do was walk up from the other side and point a gun at his head, and they had him. But no, they had to shoot this guy who was doing a great job to prove a point. At least they're keeping these two dumbasses consistent.
No.
My name is Jeff.
Now, once Nacho finds out Gus was going to betray him, Nacho has absolutely no reason to trust anything Gus says ever from this point forward, and that goes for Mike by extension. For all Nacho knows, Gus could kill his father to tie up loose ends entirely. After all, he was planning on doing it unbeknownst to him. The only thing he has to go on it that his father won't be murdered by the chicken man is Mike's word, and I'm sorry, but the guy left you on red for like 3 days. Are you really gonna trust him at this point? To this degree? I sure the fuck wouldn't. I mean, honestly, think about it. Nacho has so much evidence on Gus at this point. He knows all about the lab, about the planning to assassinate Lalo, and that Gus was planning to overthrow the cartel altogether. Why not use this information as leverage to get himself a potential deal to fuck over the man who is literally using his father for blackmail just like Hector did? At least this way he can guarantee his father blackmailer dies with him rather than having this cheesy I choose my own death moment, which is completely hollow and pointless and makes his character out to be an idiot who gives up just to make sure the plot stays in line for Breaking Bad. It just makes zero sense. Also, how the hell did they get him, beat him up, and bring him to the Salamancas? Do none of you guys find that strange? Rip Nacho and Lalo, you both deserved better. But okay, you may be saying, that's just the cartel Salamanca side of the story. The real story is the Saul side, right? I mean, it's called Better Call Saul after all, so let's talk about it. That shit sucks too. Okay. Let's start off with this whole plan to get at Howard. Even though I disagree with the amount of detail and screen time dedicated to the depicting of the scam, overall, it is a well-written, well-executed plan. If you ignore all the glaring plot conveniences, like how lucky is it that Jimmy just happened to go to the liquor store at the same time the judge did? How lucky is it that Howard called the PI on Jimmy? What if he hadn't and just said fuck it? How lucky is it that the locker room to Howard's golf clubs keeps the name of the owners of the lockers right there for anyone to see? How lucky is it that Jimmy even got into the place in the first place without Howard or Cliff seeing him? How lucky is it that Howard started flipping out about the judge before having the evidence in hand as not to make a fool of himself? How lucky is it that no one noticed Jimmy steal and return Howard's car and find someone who was able to make him a fake key in such a limited time frame? How lucky do you have to be for all this shit to come together? Pretty lucky, but not unreasonably so, I guess. Plus the payoff is worth it and the characters are punished for it, so whatever. It's not the real issue here. The real issue is the resolution to Jimmy's story. Jeff becoming a softie was kind of lame after he was built up for so long too, but that's just more of a nitpick. Now, let's go to the ending, right? Because that's where my problem really starts. I expected something like this would happen. I expected Kim would accept responsibility for Howard's death. Jimmy wouldn't, and he would officially become Saul. Check. What I did not expect was for Kim to just leave and start a new life. That's not exactly taking responsibility. To which Jimmy rightfully calls her out on, after which she goes, you know what, you're right, and she actually then finally takes responsibility. Okay, a little late, but okay. Jimmy, on the other hand, refuses to take responsibility. He just won't do it. Even when he's in prison, he says he'll get out on top, and I'll be honest, I never thought that is a possibility until I saw the episode and heard him out. The show had effectively did a Saul on me, and I can only applaud the writers for that. Just great work. I think there must have been some back and forth in the writer's room because it feels like the ending was split between Jimmy doing the right thing, which is what happened, or Jimmy continuing to do the wrong thing, which is what seemed like what was going to happen. The final nail in Jimmy's coffin as a person would have been for him to throw the woman he loved under the bus in order to save his own ass, but he didn't do it. And I have to ask, why? Don't get me wrong, I love a great character arc, but Saul was shown in this very same goddamn episode to be the exact same person he had been since Breaking Bad. So what changed? What made him willing to sacrifice everything in order to save Kim? How does it even save Kim in the first place? I mean, the Walter White shit has absolutely nothing to do with Howard, so why was it even necessary for him to tell the judge all that? What was the point, logically speaking, if it was for Kim? I mean, it just couldn't have been for her, but he keeps looking back at her like it was, and I'm just left utterly confused. When did he become this character? He only had about 10 to 15 minutes of the show to transform like this, and I just don't get how it happened. In Breaking Bad, Walter lost everything. He lost his home, his friends, and his entire family forever. It made sense why he finally learned that what he had did was not the right choice and to accept it. But Jimmy? When did Jimmy have this epiphany? I just don't understand. And to make matters worse, not only does this ending ruin Jimmy's character, it also ruins Kim's character arc as well. Kim doesn't even try to object or stop him in any way. She just allows him to take the fall entirely. I thought she's supposed to be better than that. Wasn't that the point of her entire arc? I don't care how many cigarettes you smoke with Saul, take your ass to jail too. What the fuck is going on? Would have been nice if maybe Kim never actually annulled their marriage, which means she couldn't testify against him or something. That would make sense, I guess. I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, but as it is now, it looks like Kim just gets away scot-free for something she was supposed to have grown to accept and take responsibility for too. That really makes that gut-wrenching scene in Waterworks feel a little different now. In the end, I still think Better Call Saul is a pretty good show. But while I have my gripes with Breaking Bad, some I hope to go into in the future, it definitely had a much stronger final season and a much stronger ending. Better Call Saul is great, but Breaking Bad is better. I'm sorry. Anyways, that's it. See ya.